Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome back to the second installment in the Worm Food series. So this is a complimentary series to the Age of Worms playlist that I've already completed, where I went through and looked at all of the adventure installments from Dungeon Magazine for the Age of Worms campaign. But alongside of each issue of Dungeon Magazine, Dragon Magazine had an article called Worm Food, which had some elements useful for sort of like fleshing out or expanding on the material provided in the magazine. So today we're looking at the second installment, and this is in Dragon issue number 334 from August of 2005. Looks like we have something to do with releasing the Kraken there, but unfortunately we're not here to talk about this one, this particular article as of yet. We will get there eventually, though, with the Dragon Horde series, but the Worm Food article starts on page 66, so we'll go there. And so what we have is the sort of fleshing out of Diamond Lake's shops. So I'm not going to go through and read everything verbatim like I did with the previous installment, mostly just because it's just some equipment descriptions, but we'll sort of discuss it a little bit here. So one of the first things that it mentions here is for the shop goods, anything that's available, so for adventuring gear, special substance, or tool described in the player's handbook, as long as it's less than 40 gold pieces, can be easily found within Diamond Lake, so you don't have to worry about anything else. Arms and armors are also available. However, the value of the armor rarely goes above 200, so you're probably not going to be finding any suits of like full plate or anything along those lines in Diamond Lake. It also mentions that there are some items here from the Backdrop Diamond Lake from Dungeon issue number 124. It also discusses that you can find some items like Thunderstones and Hourglasses that are not necessarily available at the shops in Diamond Lake, but can be imported from the Free City, which is certainly not the Free City of Greyhawk yet, though it will be. There's something weird going on. I don't know if it's having to do with the Living Greyhawk RPGA or something along those lines, but for the longest time, there was very little that was set really specifically in the world of Greyhawk, especially for the adventure paths. I think they were designed to be there, but it wasn't until like the Prince of Red Hand, I think, was the first issue of Dungeon Magazine where the location was very clearly a location from the world of Greyhawk. So I don't know the exact specifics as to why they couldn't commit it to the official D&D 3rd edition campaign setting, but they did eventually about the halfway point of the campaign. So you can import items from the city. However, they typically have about a 15% markup in their costs, so the players would have to pay a little bit extra for them. You can also get some items from the Arms and Equipment Guide, as well as some other sort of specialty objects there that might pertain to like mining operations. That's not listed here, but they are typically about 20% higher than what's normally listed. So for the items that they give us here, this is the general store in Diamond Lake. So I forget, the most items unique to Diamond Lake here. There was the name of the shopkeeper here. Diamond Lake small community, the shopping, but I can't find the person's name now. Anyway, the items that they give us here, like I said, are sort of meant to fill out the theme of a mining town. And if we look at the for the DM section here, it actually does talk about like giving you advice on customizing sort of like the shop wares and things that you might find in the local businesses if your town or village or wherever the characters are tends to have like some sort of specialized purpose. Right. So, for example, with the mining community in Diamond Lake, you might be finding things along these lines. But there's also recommendations, like, for example, if like forestry was the major thing, then you might see more in terms of like axes and transportation for the logs. If they use rivers to transport, they might have like the pole arms that you would use, like the hooks to sort of keep everything or to keep the logs sort of moving properly. So these things that we get here is a breathing mask. And wearing the breathing mask can give you a +1 circumstance bonus on saves made against inhaled poison. So that can affect like the black lung or stuff like that, I guess, to a certain extent. So you can find that at the general store. They also sell canaries. So the canaries are similar to the same statistics as thrushes from the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is sort of, I guess, an animal companion type of thing, except its constitution is 1. So its fortitude saves are made at -3, which means that it's very likely to die from the poisonous vapors or the poisonous gases in the mine before the human miners might necessarily need to start making those same saving throws. And the store owner charges you not by the canaries that you buy, but also any of the canaries that escape his cage when you open it. Because he's got this cage in his shop that is just like stuffed full of canaries. So you get paid you have to pay for the one that you purchase as well as the ones that manage to escape. You can also purchase maps in the town, so you've got maps of local areas, but you can also potentially find maps of some interesting, potentially like mini quest or sort of like side story adventures if you want to incorporate them into the campaign. The person that has them is the garrison, the Diamond Lake Garrison's chief cartographer, Dietrich Cicada, I guess is the name. And Dietrich might be convinced to sell those maps, or copies of those maps at least, for 2 gold pieces each. You can also purchase a mining helmet, which is actually kind of neat because it gives you a +1 armor bonus against falling rocks. And it's only useful for that. So it's not like it gives you an armor bonus against like regular attacks. It's specifically just against like a falling rock hazard. But it's still pretty cool. It also has a little oil lantern on it that sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius, or a 10-foot cone, I think it is, because it's like it's sort of like a bullseye lantern, I believe. And then it shines shadowy illumination out to 20 feet beyond that. So 10 feet is bright illumination, 20 feet, the next 20 feet after that are sort of shadowy illumination. If you had low light vision, you'd be able to see out to 30 feet as if it were normal bright illumination. So kind of cool, and it lasts for 8 hours per pint of oil. You can also get a mining outfit. So it's just sort of like a sturdy set of like thick padded clothing. Doesn't look like it gives any mechanical effects, but you can purchase that. You can also get a pickaxe, which is meant specifically for mining purposes. So if you were to use it as like a melee weapon, then you would take a -2 penalty on the attack rolls. And the same thing goes for this rock hammer, which is basically just like rough ore that is attached to sort of like splintered handles that probably from like other broken implements that are being cobbled together just to help sort of break up rocks that maybe not necessarily the strongest, but don't need to use like a pickaxe on. You can use it as a warhammer, however, you do get a -2 penalty on that as well. So some of the more interesting things that we get here are some special goods that you can find throughout the town. And one of them is the Diamond Water Elixir, which is a concoction made from Diamond Lake's clean, fresh water, which is not particularly healthy for you, as well as some other like herbs and other things thrown in there. But what's kind of neat about it is that if you drink it, you get to recover 2 points of a lost ability score, specifically damage, not drain, but damage. So if you're hit by something that like causes strength damage or con damage or whatever, if you drink this concoction, you can recover 2 points for a day of rest as opposed to the 1 point that you normally would. And this is really helpful at lower levels where things like restoration or even like lesser restoration might not yet be available to the player characters. The downside is that you spend the next 24 hours with the sickened condition because it's not the best water. There's also smelling salts that you can get, and the way that they work is if you use them on a character that's unconscious, Normally, the percent chance to regain consciousness would be only 10%. So you'd roll a percentile dice or even a d20 and a roll of either 1 or 2 or 19 or 20, depending on how the DM calls it for that, might be considered a success. However, if you use the smelling salts, it increases the percentage chance to 30%. So the diamond water elixir as well as the smelling salts are probably the two most singularly useful items, and they're also the two most expensive items in the whole the whole article here. You can also get some illicit goods, including diamond water ale, which is similar to the diamond water elixir, except it doesn't really heal you. It's just like their alcohol, and if you drink it, you have to make a DC 12 fortitude save. Those who fail become sickened. Drinkers become, or though yeah, those who fail become sickened. If you just have another drink and you're already sickened and you fail to save again, you become nauseated. And if you're nauseated and take another drink, you fail your save, you fall unconscious for 1d6 hours. So this would be something like if you wanted to do a drinking contest at the local tavern, that's a possibility. There's also calamanthus, which is a plant that is used to create illicit drugs. So if you use the drugs, it doesn't actually give you any like mechanical benefits that I can see here. Like there's no real options for it, although it does say that if you want to learn more information about it, you have to get the online supplement. And I'll talk about that here in a second. And then the last thing is just miner's milk, which is a syrupy whiskey brewed in several makeshift stills. Exaggerate that a drop, or local workers exaggerate that a drop of miner's milk can crack stone. However, if you drink it, if you succeed your DC 14 fortitude save, you get a +2 alchemical bonus on fort saves made against poison for the next hour, while those who fail fall unconscious for 1d6 hours. So pretty potent stuff. So overall, again, it's kind of an interesting article, and I appreciate what they're trying to do with it here. And I think the advice in this little tiny blurb section for DMs to have your specialized towns and villages that revolve around a very specific industry, their stores and their businesses should reflect that with equipment that you might not normally find somewhere else. And I think that that's fine. Like, again, you could have a forestry-based village have, again, like axes, saws, folding saws, carts for, transporting, an oxen or whatever to pull the carts. Or if you're doing, like I said, the river thing, you've got the hook, the polearm hook there that you can use to pull. Whoops, didn't mean to bump the camera there. That you can use to pull the logs or sort of keep them moving or dislodge them in the event that they become stuck on something. So it's an interesting concept, but again, it's not an article that I found useful enough or that I thought the players would really benefit from enough to actually implement into my campaign. And the fact that they give you an option here from the magazine that you have to download their PDF from their own website in order to have, why even include this here? Why not just have it in that Age of Worms Overload online, because you have to access it anyway. So I don't like the fact that you've got an article that is supposed to like fill out information for your campaign that isn't self-contained, right? Like, I don't mind the fact that they have this in the Overload, but why reference it here in this article if it doesn't give you the actual like mechanical effects of it in game? It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things, and I know that, everybody has computers, and like most homes have more computers than people, and I understand that, but 2005 wasn't necessarily like that. I mean, even at that point in time, I still don't think I don't think we had a computer at home. Or if we did, it certainly wasn't connected to the internet, because it was a pretty cheap one that I was struggling to run Baldur's Gate 1 off of. So, I don't know. It's just something that kind of bugs me, and I hope that the future articles that come out for the Worm Food series try to stay away from being like, well, here's something, but we're not going to tell you what it does. You have to go online and download the PDF in order to get that. I mean, maybe it's just me. I know I'm old-fashioned. I like my stuff physically in front of me. I don't like reading PDFs because Reading off computer screens gives me like really bad headaches or migraines in a very short period of time. But yeah, there we go. So the second worm food article, again, both of them so far have been interesting, but not really worth implementing into that specific campaign. Again, like you've got all this mining equipment, which is kind of cool, and some things that can be useful, like the breathing mask, right, to give you a +1 circumstance bonus on saves made against inhaled poisons. Like, that's not necessarily a bad product, but how much were the players going to end up using it? I mean, like I said, the Diamond Water Elixir and the smelling salts were the most likely, I think, in my opinion, to be used with some degree of regularity, but the Diamond Lake or the Diamond Water Elixir has this 24-hour drawback that's kind of rough. So, how often would they actually use it? If it was something where it would heal you for 2 points after a night's rest, and then you had to make a fortitude save to avoid becoming sickened the next day, that might be a little bit different because at least then they have a chance not to be affected by it. But yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, the idea is certainly sound, and I appreciate what they're going for, and the advice that they give on specializing, the stores and merchandise that's available within your village based off of its role is definitely sound and something that I definitely appreciate. But it's just another article that just kind of misses the mark to the point where it's kind of a fun read. It's kind of cool to have, but it's not really useful in the game. And again, like I recall back in the day reading these articles, and I don't think I used any of them. Like this is the one when I remember that the second one was about equipment, or I think it was mentioned in the last one that the second one was going to be about equipment found in stores in Diamond Lake. I thought that maybe I had used it, but looking back at this issue, I definitely didn't because it just wasn't worth it. But it's still, like I said, a cool concept. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if any of you have played through or run Age of Worms as players or as a dungeon master. Let me know in the comments below, did you use any of this equipment? Did you as a player purchase any of these? Like, did you get the smelling salts? Did you try the Diamond Water Ale and get absolutely trashed off of it? Did a mining helmet ever protect you from, rocks fall and hopefully you didn't die? Yeah, let me know all that in the comments below. And if you were a DM, were you getting the Dragon magazines at the same time? And if so, were you implementing this particular worm food article into your campaigns? Let me know that in the comments below. Anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.